You mentioned getting the sales up front. So what should the top 2/3 of your resume be, or the top one half, or the top 1/3?
They're not worried about McDonald's probably isn't worried about let's say they're not worried about my education, but they want to see that I have provided customer service either through volunteering, right? Maybe I usher at church or whatever, right? So they want to see those customer service skills, people skills, really. That's what they're needing. But then let's say later on in life, like for now, like for myself, let's say I'm going to apply for a new position. Let's say I want to go back to corporate America. They're probably not worried about me being a dean other than it's a manager, it's a supervisor. But if I could go back, if I was going back into the HR world and hiring and all that, well, my previous job, like I said, as far as career services, but then the recruitment position where I worked in HR. So I would possibly, instead of, because when you do a resume, it's good to show that reverse chronological order of employment. So in our case, you and I, right, we've had a handful of jobs now, and we would work way backwards. Like right now, mine would be dean at Richland, your, math instructor at Warrensburg, and then the job before that, boom, boom, boom. But if I was applying for something that they really could care less, I was a dean, but I had some experience back here where maybe let's say I worked in a manufacturing plant. Well, now I'm going to try to get those skills to the top because they may not read down far enough to see that I worked at Caterpillar for 10 years because they're only they want to, what's going to spark their interest? It's a commercial.
And that's a good point, because what you're applying for determines what you're going to put at the top. So if I'm trying to get a honor scholarship at a college, I'm going to put all my academics right here. Now I want to make sure they see that well-rounded, but I want to hit them hard, because how long do most people look at any application or any sort of submission to a scholarship or a resume? How long do they have to make an impression?
Yeah, I mean, I think the number they say is six seconds. So I always say less than 10 seconds, you have to make an impression with that piece of paper.
So you want to get that right out there. On the other hand, if I'm applying for an internship at a job at a place, I'm going to look for things that my attendance has been key, that my participation has been key. Those types of things go to the top. Now, something I've heard you talk about previously is some resumes have like an objective in them. Well, your objective in most cases as a young person is going to be to get a job. So the first thing you need to look at, I would think, is job description and tailor it from the job description. Is that kind of where you would go with that?
Definitely. I mean, I'm on a search committee right now where here at the college where I don't feel any candidate is qualified based on the minimum requirements that we put in the job description. Now I could look at the resume and say, they might have those skills based on this, but if they had actually, I feel like if they had written a stronger resume and said, hey, boom, really show me, like if it says, whatever, ability to perform, do presentations, well, put on there where I've presented to, 20 groups of 100 people or more, and numbers. That's the thing. Numbers stand out in all those words. So don't be afraid to use numbers. Every company wants you to save money. They want you to increase, like for us, increase enrollment, right? I mean, so if you're able to say, hey, I saved the company 5% by doing this, 5% as a number is going to stand out in all those words.
Well, and that's it. And it's not just statistics for statistics' sake, but with a quick number, you can really drive home a point. I worked as a volunteer for 6 months, 18 months. Give them a number. You say, I worked 25 hours a week at my job, because yes, I worked at a job, but somebody could work at a job on the weekend. Somebody could be working 32 hours, especially for young people where employment is kind of that part-time flexible world that maybe, whereas if you or I were showing up and say, I've been a teacher, they're going to expect that I've been a full-time teacher. That's going to be assumed. Right. They're going to assume I have all the key components of that. But for young people, you got to spell it out for them. And I work 5 days a week, 32 hours.
And you mentioned attendance earlier. You mentioned attendance earlier. Hey, show 100% attendance. I mean, that number stands out. Plus, if I'm an employer, I want someone that's going to show up every day. That's over half the battle right now.
Well, and that's kind of the reality, because your resume does not get you a job. Right. Is that an accurate statement?
Yep. I always say it's your commercial, it's your marketing piece. I always go back to, I'm a Michael Jordan fan, so I go back to Just Do It. Nike has those little hitters like that gets me in the store to buy those shoes. And so the resume is that marketing piece that's supposed to get you the interview. And now this is where you really sell yourself.
And that's the other key component. Your resume, your application is just the first part. So you want to make sure it's all honest.
Right.
You want to make sure it is marketable. You want to make sure it's powerful. You want to go boom, 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 hit, hit, hit. But at the same time, you got to be ready to back that up come interview time, whether it's a scholarship interview, whether it is a job interview. This is just the first step in a longer process. And it's kind of a dirty thing to say is you say, oh, your high school GPA. Well, it doesn't matter once you got into college. And your college GPA, guess what? It doesn't matter once you get your first job or you get into grad school. It does matter, but let's be honest, your goal is to do now what's going to get you to the next step. And the resume just lists your steps down.